Hi, and welcome back to Vietnam Talk. And this is our first program in year 2024. And for the people who came here first time, and my name is Brian Hjort. I'm the founder and director of Father Founded. Anyway, have been kind of absent of this program because we have been doing other programs and other different things, videos and work and updating our homepage. So yeah, now I'm back again with another interesting person to talk to, another interesting story. And on this program on Vietnam Talk, I'll be getting in touch with a very old and dear friend of a father founded. His name is John Caputo. John Caputo is a Vietnam veteran, and we knew him for a while. He had been very supportive of what we're doing, and he had a very interesting and also a sad story. John served in Vietnam from 69 to 1970 in Long Binh. He served in the intelligence service. During that time, he met a Vietnamese woman named Mai. He met her in Trudeau Street in a bar, and she became pregnant with his Amerasian daughter. And it seems like, at least what John told me, that might be being killed in 1975, but it's just like hearsay. So John, like many other Vietnam veterans, had a very sad and very interesting story. And I prefer, like in every case and every person I try to interview, that I give the voice to the person so the person can tell his own story and without being interrupted. So I hope you are ready for John's story, and I hope you are ready for more stories during 2024. So welcome back to Vietnam Talk.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Okay, John Caputo, a warm welcome to Father Founded and a warm welcome to Vietnam Talk. So first of all, I really appreciate you take the time talking with me, and I appreciate all the help you've been doing for Father Founded, all your support for the DNA test, for helping Amerasians. This means a lot for me, for our group, and for everybody who need your people like you. So, John, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, would you like to share a little bit about you? Who are you? Where are you from?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, my name is John Caputo,
Mm-hmm.
and I mostly grew up in Boston, Massachusetts.
All right.
My parents were both born in Italy,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
and I'm the youngest sibling of 9 children.
Wow. You big family.
Yes.
Wow. May I
Very
ask you where you came from? Where I'm curious. Where did your parents came from in Italy?
well. My mother was actually from Sicily. She was
Wow.
from a small town called Mineo
Mm-hmm.
outside of Catania. But
Wow.
my father was from Calabria, from a town called Potenza,
Wow.
about 90 miles east of Naples.
Wow. That sounds. You had a very interesting family.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
So you among many siblings, a big family, and so where do you live now? How is your present life?
Well, these days I still live in the Boston area, but in the winter I live mostly in Florida.
I can understand that. It's kind of a
Yeah,
cold up there.
yeah. Well, I'm a pretty bad golfer, so I like to
Wow.
play bad golf. a
Wow.
few days a week. I love the beach. I grew up across the street from the Atlantic Ocean up in
Wow.
Boston.
Wow.
So I love the beach. I love swimming.
Wow.
And I'm retired now. I was blessed to have a wonderful career in the teaching field.
Wow.
I worked in the Boston public schools, and I also taught in the veterans program at the University of Massachusetts in Boston for
So
many years.
you had a good life.
I did. I
That's
did.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
I, I did struggle uh, with alcohol abuse
Mm,
uh, because I had untreated PTSD.
yeah.
But uh, I've been in recovery programs now for almost 30 years.
Wow, that's good, John, to hear. That's good to hear.
Yes.
It's a big
So,
struggle.
yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So, with the help of the programs, the VA actually provided me several recovery programs, and with the help from some family, I've been able to stay sober now for 30 years.
Wow, it's good to go, John.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. John, when you came to Father Found, you came to us, it's because of Vietnam. So tell me,
Uh,
everybody want to hear Vietnam, everybody want to hear your story. How come you end up in Vietnam? Did you volunteer? You were enlisted? And what's the story?
well, my story goes something like this. I was in my first year of college,
Hmm.
and I was more interested in the women and playing cards.
Okay, that's the same old story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, lost you. So
I think you got lost.
yep, there I am. Am I
You're there?
back?
Okay, continue.
Yeah. So I didn't study much, so
Mm.
I was asked to leave, and upon leaving, I got drafted immediately in
Mm.
January, actually in December of 1968.
Wow.
So I entered the military in January of 1969, and I was trained at Fort Jackson, Fort Bragg, and Fort Bennings.
Wow.
Was part of the Special Forces Unit,
Wow.
this Special Forces Group.
Wow. That's
So I
like
followed,
like a special SOG, special operation group.
yes, yeah, I was part of Special Ops.
Wow.
And when I went to Vietnam, I was assigned to G2 Central Intelligence in Long Binh, and from
Wow.
there, our unit tracked pilots who had been shot down in North Vietnam, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam.
Wow.
So
So you actually went, sorry to interrupt you, you actually went on those kind of missions where you're looking for lost pilots.
yes,
Wow.
I flew over 75 missions into mostly into Cambodia and Laos. Of course, back then we had no GPS tracking
No.
available, but we generally had some coordinates to try to track the last known location of the helicopter or of the F-14. So, of course, I had to have a top secret clearance because we were in countries where we were not supposed to be.
Of course, there was no war in Cambodia, there's no war in Laos. It was
No,
just a small sideshow, wasn't it?
no. So, so I spent my almost 17 months in Vietnam with attached to G2 Central Intelligence, tracking down pilots that had crashed, and it was because of my top secret clearance that I was not able to get permission to marry a Vietnamese civilian.
Wow. So you actually end up doing this kind of secret missions like what is the name? Starlight. What's the name of the mission?
The missions were called CPR, Crash
Yeah,
Pilot Recovery.
yeah,
We
but
were trying
they
to.
had kind of I hear they had kind of a code name of those kind of missions when you went into looking for lost soldiers and
Yeah,
pilots and like a
yeah,
rescue missions.
yeah. Well, they were called. The code name was CPRs,
Hmm.
and we were trying to breathe life into pilots who had been shot down. So
Wow.
that was the code name, CPRs, but it was Crash Pilot Recovery. That was the uh, the code name for what we did. But as I said, I was stationed in Long Binh,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to travel a lot to MACV headquarters in Saigon
Mm-hmm.
to pick up our orders. A lot of times, our missions came directly from Army Central Headquarters in Saigon.
Mm.
So it was because I was able to travel. Long Binh was only about 10 miles from Saigon.
Yeah, I know. It's north from Saigon up to Bien Hoa, near the
Yeah,
cross of Honai. Yeah, I've been there. I mean, I kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
know the
Yeah.
area. So
Well,
I'm curious, John. I hadn't met many. I had met several Vietnam veterans who've been to Long Binh, but I'm always curious to know about the story because I've been there several times with my co-worker Hong, and we've been doing cases for Vietnam veterans, and it actually helped one Vietnam veteran to locate his daughter. Not in Bien Hoa because look at her family in Bien Hoa and find out the daughter had moved to the US already. But anyway, so
yeah,
I know that you had in one come from Saigon. You had one side you had a Long Binh, another side you had the train station Honai Ward, another side you had Bien Hoa Air Base, another crossing you had all the small Catholic village. So
yeah.
how do you remember this area during the war?
During the war, there was only one real highway, and that was U.S. Highway 1.
Mm-hmm. I
Other than
know.
that, all the roads were red clay dirt roads
Mm-hmm.
that would certainly flood during the monsoon season, which made travel during the monsoon season very difficult.
True.
But I often traveled to Bien Hoa, to the air base there, because
Mm-hmm.
we flew our missions out of Bien Hoa Air Base.
I remember I've been to Bien Hoa Air Base. I mean, today is still an air base.
Yeah,
And we used to go outside there and meet some old mama son, and she remembered the Americans because we're doing
yeah,
case there. And
yes,
today they have the Vietnamese Air Force still has some of the old Russian MiG 21s,
yeah,
and they're kind of very noisy airplanes.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, Bien Hoa Air Base was one of the busiest airports in the world, of
Wow.
course, during the Vietnam War years. They used to say that Bien Hoa Air Base was busier than the airport at Chicago, which is the
Wow.
busiest airport in the United States. But anyway, I traveled a lot to Saigon, to MACV headquarters, and
Mm.
of course, I had time to visit the quote bars, and that's where I met uh, Mia. Mia
Yeah,
worked.
tell me. That's what I mean, you start to bring up all my questions. You're faster than me, and I even consider myself a fast talker. Anyway, tell me about it. Come on, we want to hear the
Well,
story.
everything's connected,
It
Brian.
is indeed.
Yeah. So, of course, being a city boy from Boston, partied all the time. I love going to the bars.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I was only, I was 19, almost 20. The bar was called the Kingston.
In Kingston.
It was around the corner, the Kingston. It was near Tudo Street.
Yeah, no, Tudor Street still exists.
So that's where I met Mia.
Mm.
Mia was a bar maid, we called them. I don't know.
Mm.
So you went into the bar and you sat at a table, and the girls would come around and ask you to buy them a Saigon tea.
Saigon tea, yeah, I hear about that word.
Saigon tea, they called it. Yeah, it was mostly colored water. And the girls would say, "No tea, no talk, GI."
Oh my God.
Anyway, that's where I met Mia, and she was this lovely, cute little thing. She was like a little angel, and she was part French Vietnamese.
Okay.
So she was very beautiful.
I can imagine. French father, a Vietnamese mother.
Yeah.
Wow.
She had a very beautiful face. So we became friends because I always visited her instead of moping around Saigon, which was dangerous at night. So I always went to visit her at the Kingston bar. She also worked at the Tudo Street nightclub. It was right on the corner of Tudo, and I forget the other side street, but there was a big neon sign.
Maxims?
The big neon sign said nightclub.
I think your camera is gone.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, continue.
Anyway, there was a big neon sign.
All right.
Nightclub.
Easy.
But it was called the Tudor nightclub. So she worked there at night, and she worked at the Kingston bar during the day.
Wow.
Yeah, and she lived up above the. She lived up above there, up above the nightclub.
Do you have any idea how old she was and year of birth?
Yeah, she told me when I met her, she said that she was 17.
Wow.
And I was around 19.
So you're still teenagers.
Yes. But she spoke English very well because she lived in the French Quarter somewhere there in Saigon, and was educated by the French nuns. The nuns ran some of the Catholic schools in Saigon, so she went to a Catholic school, and she learned French and English as well as she spoke Vietnamese.
Yeah. Wow.
So we were in a relationship for a long time, and I had extended my stay in Vietnam by 6 months to try to get paperwork together. When I knew that she was pregnant, I was going to marry her.
Sure.
I said many GIs married Vietnamese women, but they told me that they would not approve my request because I had a top secret crypto NATO clearance.
All right.
And they said that it was too much of a security risk.
I see. I understand that. Wow.
So she was pregnant, and when I left in November of 1970, she was, I think, 5 or 6 months pregnant.
Wow.
So I used to write to her, and she told me that because she worked at the Kingston Bar and the Tudo nightclub, she would bring the baby to one of the, I guess it was an orphanage that was run by the Catholic nuns, the Sisters of Notre Dame, I think it was. So that she would bring the baby there during the day, and she gave me the name of the director. Her name was Sister Baptista Maria. She ran the orphanage in Saigon. And I wrote to her once to find out if the baby was there after she had the baby. And Sister Baptista wrote back to me and said that she hadn't seen me for several months. This was a couple of years later. And that Sister Baptista was leaving and going back to Nova Scotia, where she was from.
Was she Canadian?
She was Canadian. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So between where she lived and the orphanage, I used to try to send letters, but it was around 1975 in January, when things started to fall apart in Vietnam, that was the last time I heard from Maya in around 1975.
Wow.
And I wanted to add that the women that were French Vietnamese were looked down upon.
Sure.
And that when she was 14 years old, she was attacked and stabbed right in the chest.
Oh my God.
Hold on. She had a big scar between her breasts from where she had been stabbed. That's the only identifying mark that I remember. She had no tattoos. But she had this it was about 3 or 4 inch scar where she had been stabbed when she was 14 and beaten on her chest. So fast forwarding to 1975, I never heard from her after January of 1975. And at that time, the baby was around 4 years old, and the baby's name was Catherine.
All right.
And all I know is that Catherine lived with her sometime above the Tudor Street nightclub, and sometimes at the orphanage. I wrote Sister Baptista, but she didn't know. She didn't have any children there by the name of Catherine Nguyen. But she said that the baby might be there under another name.
Sure. Maybe new birth certificate or change of names, readopted. So I had another question. When you came back to the U.S., how did people treat you? I mean, did you ever talk about Vietnam to anybody outside your other Vietnam veterans?
It wasn't acceptable in 1971 when I came back for a veteran to say, "Oh yeah, I was in Vietnam for a year and a half." There was so much protest going on. You know, we were almost shamed into being quiet and not even admitting that we had served in the military, let alone have served in Vietnam. So it was a very difficult time. Plus, I I was very sad to have left Mia there with the baby. And I still feel a lot of sadness today because I believe that she was killed when the NVA invaded Saigon in 1975. And I don't know what happened to the baby at all. I did read that the United States government estimated that there was still 14,000, over 14,000 Amerasian children in
Yeah.
Vietnam in 2021.
Yeah, no, that's something nobody knows about because, I mean, I've been to Vietnam more than 20 times, and it's getting more difficult to find people. I mean, there are people, but then you go out to remote places like Pleiku, Kong Tum,
Yeah,
Dalat, or down in Mekong Delta, far away, where people are even can't read or can't write or don't know. Or, I mean, they only hear somebody say you can get help from this and that organization. But
yeah,
outside that is very few left. I mean, those are left are those that have actually no information about who they are, and
yeah.
you know. So
Well,
I had this question that I sometimes ask Vietnam veterans about. How do you feel about the April 1975 when you saw the fall of Saigon?
I was absolutely heartbroken
Mm,
to see the country fall so quickly after we had spent, you know, 12 years in Vietnam, uh, securing the country, you know, building some housing, building some roads, and trying to free the people from communism.
mm,
But evidently, we did not leave a lasting impression about how important freedom was,
sure.
because it was sad to see a lot of the Vietnamese army giving themselves up.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
true.
understand, that it was something that was going on,
Mm,
but it was something that was happening that they had no control over.
mm,
But I was emotionally crushed to
mm.
see what was happening to the people.
So just a little bit back to your search for your loved ones. Now you came back to the U.S. and now he has gone. And what have you been doing? You've been doing DNA tests, right?
Yes. Well, I tried writing letters for several years. In around 1980, 1981, I just kind of, because I was having alcohol problems and
Mm-hmm.
depression from PTSD, I just kind of gave up.
Sure, I understand that.
But then uh, I came across a few articles about your program.
Yeah.
So I saw it as another chance maybe to continue the search.
Sure, of course.
And I was very excited uh, to participate and submit a DNA test. And I'm always really glad to be able to help you in any way that I can.
It's a pleasure.
To
So I'm wondering, now you see how Vietnam is today. How do you feel about Vietnam today?
well, I was very impressed with what I could see on Google. Oh my God, Saigon is like looks like Hong Kong.
Yeah, I guess I had been to Hong Kong, but I want to know Saigon has changed a lot because I came there in 1992. There was
Yeah,
nothing. I mean, it was so
yeah.
poor and trash, and there was no. And today it looked like another planet.
It's amazing the construction that has taken place. Uh, I remember going to Cam Ranh Bay and it was an Air Force base in a hospital there. I had gotten some shrapnel wounds in my face and in my chest.
Wow.
So they gave me a 3-day pass to go to the Cam Ranh Bay because there's a beach there.
Yeah.
Well, now Cam Ranh Bay is a resort area.
Sure.
There's hotels there and swimming pools along the beach, and I'm like, oh my God, wow.
True.
But you know what? I'm very proud of the Vietnamese people for recovering from the war and for, you know, building up their economy and giving people a better life today that we wanted to give them. That's why we were there.
Sure.
To give the people a better life.
That's true. So, I mean, you can keep talking. I really want you to come back for the next program because I want to hear more about some of your war stories. But now it's a story about the loved ones because, you know, my idea and what we're doing is that we're going to have this into Vietnamese language translated and with subtitles and that had more audience and more people can see what you're saying and hear your voice. Of course, in English, people understand it, but if we had it in Vietnamese, we're going to have a bigger chance. So, do you have any final words for the people who's watching you, who's listening to you about your story, about how they can contact you to reach out for you, for me, for...
Well, I would say that my daughter's name was Catherine. All I know is her last name was Nguyen. And if you're out there somewhere, I want you to know that I loved you from the minute you were born. I never forgot you. I'm sorry I have never been able to find you, but you've been loved for the 53 years that you are alive today. And I hope that no matter where you are, that you've had a happy life.
Thank
and
you.
I still keep the faith that someday I will find you or you will find me.
Sure, of course. John, thank you for keep supporting. Thank you for sharing your story. You never give up, and we won't give up on you. Thank you so much.
I will always continue to support your program because I know that it helps me to feel better that at least I'm doing something to help all those children who were fatherless.
Thank you
And
very
I
much.
hope that someday they all will be able to find their father.
Sure. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Yes.
Here, finish.